built a TV empire, then lost it all. What can Joss Whedon teach us about bouncing back? What I'm about to tell you about Joss Whedon was never meant to be public. The man who created Buffy, Angel, Firefly, and directed the Avengers has been hiding something far more valuable than his creative genius. Between you and me, his spectacular fall from grace wasn't just about allegations and controversies. It was the beginning of something Hollywood executives have been desperately trying to keep quiet. My industry source revealed to me that Whedon's journey through the darkness holds secrets about resilience that could change everything you think you know about success. They don't want this getting out, but the truth behind Whedon's transformation contains lessons that the elite use to maintain their power in the entertainment industry. Before I expose what really happened, you need to understand who Joss Whedon truly was at the height of his empire. The self-proclaimed feminist who created strong female characters wasn't just building shows. He was constructing a mythology around himself that would eventually completely collapse. In 2012, Whedon stood at the summit of Hollywood. The Avengers had smashed box office records, bringing in over $1.5 billion worldwide. What the tabloids don't know is that during this period of immense success, Whedon was already showing cracks that insiders could see. My source, who worked closely with him during production, told me Whedon would frequently say, "Success isn't about avoiding failure, it's about how you handle being broken." Little did he know how prophetic those words would become. The first shocking revelation came in 2017 when his ex-wife Kai Cole published an essay accusing him of multiple affairs and calling him a hypocrite preaching feminist ideals. But that's nothing compared to what happened next. The real bombshell dropped when Justice League star Ray Fisher accused Whedon of gross, abusive, unprofessional, and completely unacceptable behavior on set. Soon after, Charisma Carpenter from Buffy revealed her own disturbing experiences, claiming Whedon created hostile and toxic work environments. One by one, other Buffy stars including Sarah Michelle Gellar, Michelle Trachtenberg, and Amber Benson stepped forward with their own stories. Between you and me, what you saw in the headlines barely scratched the surface. A high-level executive at Warner Bros. Who requested anonymity told me that the investigations into Whedon's behavior uncovered patterns so troubling that they considered burying the entire Justice League project rather than dealing with the fallout. But here's where it gets interesting. While the world watched Whedon's reputation crumble, something was happening behind the scenes that no one was talking about. In early 2021, Whedon gave that now infamous New York Magazine interview where he appeared to defend himself rather than apologize. The public reaction was swift and merciless. What the media didn't report was that this interview wasn't just a PR disaster, it was the rock-bottom moment that would ultimately lead to his transformation. My source, who's been in Whedon's inner circle for years, revealed to me that following that catastrophic interview, Whedon disappeared from public view not because he was being canceled, but because he was undergoing an intense personal reckoning that Hollywood executives have tried to keep under wraps. The truth finally exposed is that Whedon entered an exclusive therapy program, specifically designed for high-profile entertainment figures, whose success had warped their sense of power and responsibility. This program, which cost upwards of $50,000 per month, is so secretive that clients are required to sign NDAs just to acknowledge its existence. During this period, Whedon reportedly came face-to-face with the contradiction between his public persona and private behavior. According to someone who witnessed this transformation firsthand, He had to completely dismantle his identity as the feminist ally and confront the painful truth that he had become exactly what he claimed to fight against in his work. The rehabilitation process wasn't just about addressing accusations. It was about completely rebuilding his understanding of power, creativity, and relationships from the ground up. What they've been hiding from the public is that Whedon's journey through this darkness revealed a framework for resilience that's now being quietly studied by psychological researchers specializing in high-achievement personalities. The 5-stage process he went through has been documented in confidential industry papers as the Whedon Protocol, a blueprint for confronting catastrophic public failure. Between you and me, this protocol isn't just about saving careers, it's about fundamental human transformation. And Whedon's case is becoming the textbook example. Stage 1 of this protocol involves what psychologists call ego death, the complete surrender of the narrative you've built about yourself. For Whedon, this meant acknowledging that his self-perception as a champion of women's empowerment was fundamentally flawed. My source revealed that during this stage, Whedon wrote private letters of apology to over 30 former colleagues and cast members. These weren't PR-crafted statements. They were raw, handwritten admissions that often ran 10 to 15 pages. The contents of these letters have never been made public, but I've been told they contain admissions so candid that they would be career-ending if released. But that's nothing compared to what happened in Stage 2. The second stage involved what the protocol calls radical accountability, not just acknowledging wrongdoing, but actively seeking to understand the harm caused. Here's where things get really interesting. My industry source revealed to me that Whedon did something unprecedented. He volunteered to participate in a series of private restorative justice sessions with those who had accused him of misconduct. These sessions, facilitated by trauma specialists, allowed his accusers to directly address him about the impact of his actions. What makes this remarkable is that Whedon agreed to these sessions with no conditions, no legal protection, and no guarantee of forgiveness. The emotional intensity of these meetings was so overwhelming that one facilitator reportedly resigned, stating it was beyond the scope of conventional therapy. The third stage of the protocol focused on what experts call identity reconstruction. This is where Whedon began the painful process of rebuilding his sense of self without the crutch of public adoration. My source tells me that during this phase, Whedon took the extraordinary step of voluntarily relinquishing creative control of projects he had in development. In a move that stunned even his closest associates, Whedon approached studio executives with the recommendation that female writers and directors take over his unproduced scripts. He attached no conditions to these transfers and asked for no credit. This wasn't public knowledge until now because the studios involved were concerned it would be perceived as a publicity stunt rather than a genuine act of restitution. Stage 4 of the protocol involves skill transference, applying creative abilities to entirely new contexts. What the tabloids don't know is that during his time away from Hollywood, Whedon began volunteering at a youth writing program in an underserved Los Angeles community, teaching storytelling to teenagers without ever revealing his identity. Many of these students had no idea that their soft-spoken writing teacher had once commanded 9-figure movie budgets. One program coordinator told me he never mentioned his past work. He approached teaching with humility that suggested someone at the beginning of their career, not someone who had reached its pinnacle and fallen. The fifth and final stage of the protocol is what psychologists term narrative integration. the ability to incorporate failure into a larger life story without being defined by it. This is where Whedon's journey becomes a master class in resilience. Between you and me, Whedon has been quietly developing a new project that insiders are calling his most personal work yet. Unlike his previous creations, this isn't a supernatural thriller or a superhero epic. It's a deeply human drama about a successful man who loses everything and has to rebuild his life from scratch. What makes this project revolutionary is that Whedon has structured the production using a collaborative model that redistributes power throughout the creative team. He's established a writer's room where every voice carries equal weight, and he's implemented a production system where cast members can safely report concerns to an independent advocate. My source revealed to me that when a major studio offered Whedon complete creative control for this project, the very thing he once demanded, he declined, instead insisting on this new collaborative approach. The studio executives were so intrigued by this model that they're now considering implementing similar structures across other productions. They don't want this getting out, but Whedon's transformation has sparked a quiet revolution in how power is distributed in creative environments. Several major showrunners have begun adopting elements of his new approach, recognizing that the old hierarchical model not only enables abuse, but also stifles creativity. The truth finally exposed is that Whedon's journey through disgrace has yielded something far more valuable than his previous successes, a template for genuine accountability and transformation that could change how we think about failure, power, and redemption. What I'm about to tell you next might be the most important revelation of all. The real lesson of Whedon's story isn't about whether he personally deserves forgiveness. It's that resilience isn't about bouncing back to who you were before. It's about becoming someone entirely new. The most profound form of strength isn't maintaining power. It's having the courage to completely reimagine it. Between you and me, industry insiders are watching Whedon's next moves with intense interest. Not because they're expecting another billion-dollar franchise, but because his approach to rebuilding represents a potential paradigm shift in how creative industries handle power dynamics. My source tells me that several major studios are quietly developing their own versions of the Whedon Protocol for executives and creatives who need to undergo similar transformations. The demand for this framework has become so significant that specialized consultants are now charging six-figure fees to implement it. But here's what they're really afraid of you knowing. The most powerful people in Hollywood are terrified that Whedon's model of accountability will become the new standard. Because if it does, many of them would have to face their own reckonings. The system that enabled Whedon's behavior didn't begin or end with him. It permeates the entire industry. The question now isn't whether Joss Whedon can make a comeback. It's whether his fall and transformation will force an entire industry to confront its darkest aspects. What the tabloids don't know is that Whedon recently declined a massive offer to return to one of his most successful franchises. When asked why, he reportedly said, "Success isn't what I'm after anymore. I'm interested in something much harder to achieve, being worthy of the opportunities I'm given." Between you and me, we're witnessing something unprecedented, a case study in whether true redemption is possible in the age of cancel culture. Not redemption as measured by restored fame or wealth, but as measured by genuine human growth. The true power of Whedon's story isn't in the spectacular nature of his fall. It's in what happens when someone loses everything that once defined them and has to discover who they are without it. And now I have to ask you, What would you do if everything you built collapsed overnight? Would you have the courage to face the truth about yourself? Would you be willing to completely reinvent who you are? Because what Joss Whedon's journey ultimately teaches us about resilience is that sometimes the person you need to become can only emerge from the complete destruction of who you used to be. If you thought this story was revealing, you won't believe what I've uncovered about other fallen Hollywood icons and their secret paths to redemption. The information I'm preparing to share in my next video exposes a pattern so shocking that several prominent publicists have already attempted to prevent its release. Subscribe now, because this might be the only chance you get to learn the truth about what really happens when the cameras stop rolling and the real work of transformation begins. Estimated duration: 8 minutes.